Okay, we're coming into Stafford Bay now. This is what they call, this is actually a part of an old marae, and this is the old marae, and I don't know much about it. It's Stafford Bay. There were 4 trenches placed up here by the Maori back in the old days, and it's an old part of Matapouri, a very old part of Matapouri. Bit of a climb to get to the top. In the old days, the woman used to grab stones off the beach and bring them up here, just for warfare. But you've also got to watch your footing around here because there's holes in the ground. A very old area up here. This is what they call Cabbage Tree Bay. And it's because of the amount of cabbage trees up here. And one thing you've got to watch your footing, because yes, there are unusual holes. Now here, as we get here, is one of the trenches, one of many trenches that was here years ago. And there's a really big old tree up there. The only thing for me is I'm up top here and I'm still looking around. So all this is uncharted territory for me, and I've got to be very careful because there's all sorts of funny things going on with the ground here. And with me, I'm just a tourist, I'm just looking. On my left is Whale Bay, but yeah, this is a very, very old area. You're allowed up here, but as I say, it's a very old area. As you can see, there's some quite old trees here. And looking round, it's quite interesting, but definitely a fortress. So that trench goes all the way through, which is pretty big. And rightly so, because nobody was safe living in the fortress areas probably about 200 years ago. And I'm still coming through. I'm coming up the path which is on the side of the Whale Bay side, and coming up to the top. It's part of the top here. It's not generally a track where people would walk unless you've got an interest in the Maori history, which I had. But once again, you come into these places with total respect for the land. I'm up here. It's a very old area. Really, really old. And as you can see, they called it Cabbage Tree Bay for a reason. And this is probably where they would have lived up here in the Maori Pa. It was a fortress. But they had a good lookout because they can look out northwards and see if anything was coming. And of course, it's a real steep climb to get up anyway around here. It's really, really steep. Now, back in the day, she was pretty well habited, but they did call it Cabbage Tree Bay. And you can see, and I'm not going in there because that is just full of undergrowth and all sorts of things. But it's a real old Pa site. Yeah, there's a bit of old history in there. And as far as I'm concerned. Old history like this is just better off left alone, and these sort of places I'm not really prepared to go in there, because you can see the old trees and things in there that it is really, really old. And as I say, there's holes in the ground. I can see one right there. It just stops people going in, because there's no reason why anyone has to be in here. But there it is. That's the old Pa site. I don't even know the tribe that was up here. From what I do gather, there's a Maori Pa site that stayed in Matapouri, and while the warriors were out at Poor Knight's Island fishing, the Waikato Maoris came through and massacred all the people that were left in the village at Matapouri. By the time the warriors got back to Matapouri and found their whānau decimated, with vengeance and anger, I believe they proceeded to hunt the Waikato Maori down, and they chased them to a town called, I think it's Whananakai, and a big battle took place, and it was a fierce battle. And all along this coast there's quite a lot of bloodshed. There's a bit of history to be learnt here. I'm pretty limited. There was a whānau here by the name of Pa that knew a lot about it, and probably a lot more. In the earlier days of the settlers, the Clements, the Aspens, the Munros, Clark and Matheson, they were all the people that were here that started pioneering the bush. They worked with the Maori people to do a lot of stuff up here. But yeah, definitely see she's leave me alone turf, and it's old ancient woods in here, and even that tree would have a story to tell. But you know, with respect, you leave these places alone, and you can definitely feel the wildlife here. I can, and it's just come here for a visit, and with respect, nothing else. But yeah, I like looking around these old places, but you just don't come in and wreck them and light fires and chop down trees and disrespect it, because it's a sacred ground here. Very sacred ground, and some of these trees, as I say, have probably been here since day one, and even in there, and I think that's where everyone lived in there, because there's a whole lot of, you can see the food pits and probably where the foddies were and everything. But yeah, we'll leave it at that. And even an old rotten log that's long gone. What that was used for, I don't know. And we're coming out now. We'll leave the area. But yeah, just good to have a look at, and just to say hello. But once again, you've got to be so careful where you walk around here, because it's like a bomb. It's not for the faint-hearted up here, and once again, you've got to be a fit sort of person to come up way up in here. But I can assure you that in there and up in there a long time ago, I'm going about 200 years ago plus, there was a big marae here, and the Maoris lived here, and they did pretty well. Even now you can still see, like, I don't know what they are, and I don't need to know what they are, things in the ground, and as far as I'm concerned, those things in the ground can stay there. But yeah, I would say at night time this place is alive, because where we're staying is a place called Wairau Bay, Te Wairau, and it's called Spirit Bay. And at night time, when you come out in the dark and you're by yourself, if you realise the area and respect the area and know what took place there, you can feel the spirits. They are there. And there's one of the trenches, or what's left of it. It's covered in trees and that, but the area, as I say, is old history. Luckily, most of the tourists go to Whale Bay, which is, I call that a Pākehā beach. But this is real Maori turf up here. And yeah, you can even look at the tree there, it's got markings on it. And you know, these valleys and all these things here all mean something. When I was going down to Cabbage Bay for a walk, there were potholes everywhere, and if you go down there at night, chances are you'll sprain an ankle or break a leg. Very easy. You just got to watch where you're going. But yeah, much respect. But the people that lived here would have been scared because they had 4 trenches in defence, and they dug 4 trenches, so it was pretty well guarded. And as I say, they used to send the woman down onto Cabbage Bay to pick up stones and bring them up here, and that was their weaponry. And they would throw stones at any parties that came up and raided them, and it happened on a regular basis. But yeah, it's like a landmine here. You've got to be careful because there's some interesting stuff in the ground. But there it is. Quite interesting actually. I'm just watching my footing here because could be a bit dangerous. If anyone just comes up here, hoha, and just for a walk and not watching where they're going, chances are you'll get a broken ankle, broken leg. I don't know how the holes got in the ground here, it just looks like they formed. But they're about a foot deep and about 10, 12 inches, about a foot round and a foot deep. And some of them are 2 foot deep. And they've been there for a long time. But yeah, coming back in, we're sort of coming down off the top now. We've already been up to where one of the trenches were, and we're coming back into the bush.